Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I am Patrick from Humanlytics. Welcome to DataWithBill Live, where our friends share about their subject matter expertise in the realm of data, technology, and digital marketing. I'm obviously subbing in for Bill today, who is in China at the moment and couldn't make it. With me is Calum McClelland, a 2016 VFA fellow at Leverege, which provides software and services for the Internet of Things. He currently manages a top 10 most popular blog about the IoT industry called IoT for All. Hi, Calum. Can you just start by introducing yourself and maybe your role at Leverege?
Sure. Thanks, Pat. So my name is Calum, and my official title is the Director of Business Development at Leverege. But my role involves a lot of different aspects of the company. So in addition to doing business development, sales, I also do a lot of marketing, which is what I'll be talking about today on the content creation side and managing our growing blog. And then in addition, I also do some project management on specific projects that we do.
Great. So let's talk about IoT for All. What made you decide to start the publication for Leverege?
So something we really believe in here at Leverege is providing value first to people, and then that will create a lot of things in return. So when I first joined back about 10 months ago in August, the VP of Marketing Business Development, his name's Ryan, right from the get-go wanted us to be creating content. So we initially started with just one post a week, and we passed around the company so it wouldn't be too big of a burden on any one individual. So, with 8 of us, if you figure that's one person every 2 months. So you can get a post every week for 4 weeks in a month. So that's how we began. Again, just trying to get that consistently. And my role in taking over a lot of the publication just kind of came out of nowhere. So we were getting content out consistently, but we needed to be more, have more of a system. So I'm the kind of person who's very drawn to, organizational system sort of creation. So I ended up just taking on that role, and it has grown from there in a very nice way. And I'll talk a little bit about that growth today.
Perfect. So can you just start by giving us a general sense of how IoT for All, the blog, is doing currently?
Sure. So I think we're at a bit over 100,000 views per month across both our own blog and our Medium publication. So we have a team of 15 writers now who are writing for the blog. We're getting a post a day, some numbering in the tens of thousands of views. So it's been really exciting to see, and we're excited to see what we can keep doing going forward.
Yeah, that's extremely impressive. How long did it take you to get to that level of traction?
So we really started about 9 months ago, and initially we began just putting posts out on Medium. So one thing I'll talk about today, and actually I can probably just launch into right now, is for many of you out there, if you're going to start your own blog or your own content, one consideration is, do we host it on Medium? Do we create our own separate site? And there's pluses and minuses to both. So we originally started out on Medium because one of the advantages is it has a built-in way for people to follow or find and read your content. So if you're just to post something on your own separate site, you have the problem of how do you get eyes on your content? How do you bring people to actually look at the stuff you're creating? So one way is people might find that organically. You might try to get someone else to cross-post it, maybe a more popular site saying, hey, check out this article, it's really good content. But you still have this problem of how are people finding it? So one of the advantages of Medium and why we started out there initially was that it has this built-in network. So if someone likes a story, they can hit the recommend button, and now their followers, since it's a network, will be able to similarly see that. So a post with a lot of recommends might even float to the top of the Medium homepage, which has happened with a few of our posts. And then next thing you know, you're getting tens of thousands of views or reads on one individual post, despite not necessarily having a big personal following. So that was the reason we got onto Medium initially when we first started. And we created our own Medium publication. So there's 2 options when you post something on Medium, if you're not familiar. If you were to post a story, you can just post it by itself, not associated with publication. Or you can put it on a publication. You could own that publication yourself, or that could be a different one. So like Startup Grind is a publication, or we have a publication called IoT for All. The advantage of putting a story on a publication is on Medium, people can follow writers, and then they can follow publications. So things that come out from a publication they follow might come up in their daily digest, so it's more likely for them to see it. So by putting it on a big publication, say like Startup Grind, right? They have 200,000 followers, something like that. It's much more likely that a lot of people are going to see that early. So again, you can put it on publication, which has the advantage of getting in front of a lot of people, or you can post it separately. There's no real advantage to posting separately. But you also have to consider, do you want to put it on a publication that someone already owns or create your own? Right. Advantage of putting it on one that someone already owns, they already have a lot of followers. Advantage of putting on your own and creating your own publication is you can start to build followers, and in the short run, you won't get as many views, but in the long run, maybe you can build up your own personal following, have a lot more control over it, etc.
So just to follow up on that, would you recommend branding the publication with your company's name? Like, why did you guys choose not to use the Leverege brand?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it depends on the company and what you're selling. So something that we really believe in, and again, one of the reasons we've gotten into content creation in the first place, is that kind of the old standard of like sell, just trying to get people to buy stuff. I think it's not necessarily dead. It still works in a lot of spheres, but it's definitely dying. Because one thing that's changed in the past, few decades is just the amount of things grabbing at our attention. So between having a smartphone, a laptop, a tablet, whatever that might be, we have instant access to all the information in the world. And so attention is the valuable resource that everyone's competing for. So, I mean, if you just look at advertisements, not even too long ago, but like, let's just say a few decades ago, have you ever watched advertisements from like the 50s or 60s? Like, they suck. And it's like shocking because you're like, wow, this is so boring how they sell anything. But that's because now everyone is realizing that you need to make them like entertaining and like have people watch something and feel like they got something in return for their attention rather than just being sold to. Because I'm sure, like, if you're like me, I have just learned to tune out advertisements. Like, if I'm scrolling through an article and I see sponsored, I literally don't even absorb what's below the sponsored part. I'm just like, okay, skip that. So I think increasingly people are just getting used to this. Okay, we're getting it advertised at so much, tune it out. So if you try to just go directly at people, it often just hits a brick wall or just goes right through and doesn't get absorbed. So to circle back to your original question, that's why we decided to opt for not necessarily from the company, to go with a more, orthogonal approach where you provide all this value. And for the people who say, wow, like, this is really valuable, who's behind this? Then they follow through and go, oh, wow, it's these Leverege guys. Who are they? Clearly they know what they're talking about. That has actually turned into a lot of business for us, which has been really cool to see. But that was our reasoning behind going with a separate brand. Although I will just caveat that with, I think there are instances in which it would be better to tie them more closely together. It can just really depend.
Yeah. So kind of going back to Medium, which you started to talk about, if you were to do this all over again, would you choose Medium or would you choose something else?
So something that I think something that'll be helpful in answering this is just talking a little bit about our journey. So I mentioned before that we started out on Medium, and we were pretty surprised, happily so, to see us getting a lot of followers, and it just really started ramping up. I think there's a lot of reasons that went into that. Some of it's luck. I think one of the big reasons is consistency, and that's one thing if you take away from this talk that I would recommend is whatever you do, just being consistent. So if you can commit to just one post a week, one a month, one a day, whatever works best for you, just choose that thing and stick to it. Because this is a long-term strategy. Like, content marketing is not the kind of thing that you're going to see a huge amount of payback from right away. It's just building up this backlog of content. I've heard it described as like a forest. So you plant all these seeds, and over time, eventually you have this huge, massive forest, which is, either bringing in leads or just getting people aware of you. But, planting things takes a while. So, a bit of a tangent there, but be consistent. I think that's important. anyways, so we started out with the Medium publication and had a lot of success. But then we decided to create our own site off of Medium. So that's just IoT-for-all.com. The reason being that we wanted more control over it. So a disadvantage of Medium is while you can build up all these followers, you don't have direct access to them. Like you don't have their emails or anything like that. The reason that's a disadvantage is, say Medium was to just go under, which it could because it is a company, you would have no access to those followers. You'd lose everything you built up. That was a worry of ours, which is why we wanted to create this separate publication. Also, Medium has certain limitations. It's purely a blogging platform. One day we want to go to video and podcasts, maybe do something similar to this. So being able to share that on our own site is something we wanted the ability to do, and you can't do that with Medium. That's why we moved off. So to answer your question on what I would recommend starting out, Medium has been making some changes lately that I haven't been too pleased with. So they've raised a ton of money and their investors want to see some return on that. So they're trying to figure out how to monetize right now. They've been trying out a lot of different things that, frankly, I don't really understand what they're trying to do. Who knows? Maybe they have some brilliant strategy and it's going to all work out. But for now, it's kind of in flux. So one, I think it's a lot harder to have the success that we stumbled upon starting 9 months ago, given those changes. And two, I don't know what the future is looking like for Medium. So my recommendation would be to start your own separate blog. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean you can't use Medium. So what we're doing now is we'll first post something on our own separate site, and then you can import that into Medium. And what importing does, which is important rather than just reposting, is it provides something called a canonical link. And what that means is it's basically telling search engines, hey, that's the original one for search rankings. So if someone was to come across the story, they would come across the one on your own blog above the Medium one, because the Medium one is saying, hey, that's the original. So that's good because if you want someone finding it, you want them finding it on your own blog, especially if it's a company blog, because then they're on your company site, versus finding it on Medium and having less of like a connection to you personally. And it can also, having duplicate content out there can also hurt both posts for SEO content or SEO purposes. So anyways, the takeaway is I would start your own blog, use Medium as a way of publishing that, because it's just a way of getting it in front of more people, but Medium not being necessarily the central focus.
Gotcha. We had that exact issue at Xavia where we had our own company blog, and then we started a Medium account. So what you guys did was import through the import feature. Is it importing from WordPress? Is that how it works? Or
you can import with you just put the URL in. So on Medium, if you go up to stories, so if you click on your little profile on the upper right, you'll have a little drop down, you click on stories. On that page, there's a button that says import story. And you can just click on that, put in a URL, and it'll import it. It really messes up the formatting, so you'll need to fix that first. But once you do that and post it, it's pointing back to your original piece.
Got it. So to go back to the success you stumbled upon over the last 9 months, I think the question on a lot of people's minds right now is probably, what do you think made IoT for All so successful in such a short period of time in the first place?
Sure. I think, so I'll just quickly say that some of it is luck and industry. Of course, I'm sure you don't want to hear that because you want to hear, okay, well, what are the stuff that I can do? And what I mean is we are in an industry in which a lot of it's very technical. Like so much of it's written by engineers for engineers. And so what helped us out is in writing things about, maybe complex and technical topics, but in very understandable, easily approachable ways. So that's part of the nature of the industry, but I think that's just something that can be generally taken away is, again, going back to that idea of our attention being constantly drawn to so many places. If people get bored of something, they'll just stop reading. So keeping that in mind, being, very clear in what you're saying, making sure that it's obvious what the value is in reading this. If it takes you a lot of time to get into the value of a post that you write, people aren't going to stick around. So that's actually something interesting that Medium tracks is not only the views, but the reads of posts, which is an indicator of the quality of it. I don't know how they do it exactly, if it's time to scroll, but I think that concept is really important to think about is, not only did we get X amount of people to look at our post, which more so comes down to did it have an interesting image or a good title like clickbait, but how many people actually took value out of this and read it. Mm-hmm. So keeping that in mind, I think that's something that we did right is, being very clear, writing in just human language, not like overly technical if you don't need to be, and getting to the point, or at least telling the point early, saying, here's what we're going to talk about, so someone knows, oh, okay, cool. That's what I'm getting into for this post. In a similar vein, I think having, we're increasingly, so many things are visual. Like, I think it's awesome you're doing this series because video is definitely on the up and up as far as content goes. People like watching video. Even for written content, if you can intersperse with pictures or at the very least have like good headings to break up the text, it makes it a lot easier rather than reading blocks, like huge blocks of text. That's fine in books, but I think when someone's on the internet, they're just kind of used to this new paradigm of easily digestible. So keeping that in mind as you write and format your posts too helps. Actually, that's something that Medium does really well, and I think one of the reasons they've been successful. There's like a lot of white space on the side. It's condensed down the middle as you read. It's broken up with nice headers. It's just very clean and not distracting. So, anyways, to return to the original question, unless you have another one you were about to ask.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Sure. So yeah, to sum that up, good formatting, make it nice and digestible. Same with the writing, clear and concise. I think another thing that we've done well, and I actually already touched upon this, is just being consistent. So just sticking to a schedule and just making sure to post that. Following our interests too. So again, I think this somewhat ties to luck, but we didn't really have a defined content strategy when we wrote. It was kind of like, write whatever you want. So something that one of my coworkers did, E-Tech, also 2016 fellow, he started like an internal newsletter where he'd write about the things he was researching, whether it was on like artificial intelligence or like machine learning, whatever that might be, and share it with the team. And we decided, well, hey, you're sharing this internally, let's share that externally as well, and started turning those into actual posts. But those are things he was already researching and interested in the industry. So it's likely that there's other people out there who are similarly interested in that. And that turned out to be true. So I think his posts are the best of all the things we write because they are written by someone who's in the thick of things. So at your company, whatever it might be, writing about the topics that are interesting to you at the time, the odds are there's someone out there who is going to be interested in that same topic. So it's just all about sharing value, whatever that might be. And if there's one thing to take away from today, it starts with value. So there's all these tricks you can do with formatting to make it look nicer, to SEO to make it more likely to come up with search results. But if you don't have actually good content, none of that really matters. And like at the end of the day, thinking about how is this valuable? Like, why would someone want to read this? And really asking that question genuinely. If your answer is, well, the reason I'm writing this is because I want people to find out about us, that can be your end goal. But if that's the only reason behind the post, it's not going to go very far. Like, I've read a lot of posts of people submitting to us to post on IoT for All, where it'll be all about their company. Like, this product is good for this. I'm like, no one wants to read that. Like, it might be true. You might have the best product in the world, but no one wants to read like an advertisement essentially to that. Right. So, how does this provide value? It could be compiling resources. That's an easy one early on. Is you've probably personally had to find resources on whatever your company does. Make a list. Like, here are 10 valuable resources if you're just getting started, in my case, in IoT. Do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever might be about.
Sure.
Sorry, on that point about adding value to your target audience, what was your experience like finding that target audience? Was it difficult to identify that group of people? Like for IoT for All, what was that experience like, and what was the target audience?
Yeah, I think that can be a really tricky question. It's interesting for us because for those of you out there who might not be familiar with IoT, so it stands for the Internet of Things, and it basically refers to connected devices. So everything's increasingly connected to the internet, whether it's your phone, the laptop, or tablet, whatever. We know about those, but not everything else is being connected. So TVs, lights, cars, everything. And there's a lot of advantages to that. So because it's so broad of a concept, it's tough because our readership could be almost anyone, since it really does impact every aspect of your life. But that's not really a useful thing to say. It's kind of similar to saying, like, okay, who's the target market for cigarettes? Everyone, because everybody breathes. Like, that's not really right. So yeah, that's a really tough question. I would say that's why it's important to sort of follow initially yourself. Like, what would I be interested in learning? That's something that I've done a lot of writing myself, and what I do is I always think, okay, what is a technical thing that I don't know about that would be useful for me to know how it works? Because I'm not a technical person. I mean, I'm the business marketing side, but I'm at a tech company. So early on, I was like, I don't know how IoT works. Let me write a post about that. Because one, it forces me to go out and learn it, and two, if I don't know this and I'm interested in knowing it, other people probably are too. So I think that's a really good place to start is, what are your own curiosities? What are the things you want to learn? What are the things you have learned maybe over the past few months that were really valuable to you and could be valuable to someone else? And I think that's a really good way to start. And then over time, you'll see which of your posts are more successful. Oh, it turns out when we write about, something I found recently is people seem to like X things you didn't know about some technology. So like I did a 6 things you didn't know about Bluetooth, or like 10 things you didn't know about Wi-Fi. People seem to like those, so now I'm writing more of those. But yeah, you'll find that out over time. But starting initially, I think using yourself as sort of a barometer is helpful.
Yeah. What about process? You've kind of given a lot of tips on strategy. What is the process of producing blog posts like at IoT for All?
Sure. I would say to quickly talk on the writing side. So I both write and edit, and it's different for everyone. Everyone writes differently. There's no right way to do it, and I think that's really important to understand. Like, a lot of people get frustrated because they, hear someone else who just sits down and writes a post in one sitting. For me, I've found it's good. I need to do it in like 3 separate blocks. First, I do like research, then I do writing an initial draft, and then I do returning and like looking at the draft and editing it one more time. It's different for every person, but that's why consistency is so important, because that's something you can only really know by doing and learning. So your first post isn't going to be good. You just need to accept that and know that everyone is building you. It's like improving your skills and building up that backlog of content. Like, I look at some of the early stuff I did, not as good as now, and that's just the way it is, and that's totally okay. But those early ones got me to where I am now. And similarly with the other writers, same thing. So just start doing it. You'll figure out your own process. Beyond the writing.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So I was going to say, beyond the writing, once you've gotten the post, the process, what I'll do now is, I think, returning to the idea of getting eyes on a post. You can try to spread social media, things like that. Organic search can also be a really big driver. So writing things that, how do you write something that people are searching for? What tool we use is Google Keywords. Or the Keywords tool in Google AdWords. So if you have a Google AdWords account, you can use the Keyword Planner. You can search for keywords, see how many people are searching this per month, and what's the competition. So high competition means that there's a lot of other people out there who are paying for Google ads on that keyword, which means it's unlikely that you're going to rank very high. So if you can find something with decent search volume, a good amount of people are searching for this, like, how does Wi-Fi work? That's a recent one for me. Okay, I know a lot of people searching for this, not a lot of competition. And then the third thing you can do is just go Google it yourself using quotes. So that way you get the exact keyword. So you do like quote, how does Wi-Fi work, end quote, and then see how many search results there are. So there's like 3 million people or pages that have that exact keyword in it, versus say 40,000. 40,000 means not that many people have written with this exact keyword, and it has good search volume. That's like a really good ratio. So finding things that people are searching, people haven't necessarily written on, and that there's not a lot of competition for. It's not easy, but that's kind of the thinking behind it.
Yeah, that's really helpful advice. So for someone who's just starting out with their own publication, or someone who's not found your level of success, what kind of recommendations would you give them? What are the next steps that you would recommend?
So the first step is just start. Like, just write something. If you're doing this content marketing. So go out and write a post, whatever that might be. Don't worry about where it's going to get posted, about, how you're going to share it, things like that. Just write it. Once you have it written, maybe even get a few, backlogged, like write 3, 4, 5 posts. So that way, when you start, you'll be able to put things out on a consistent basis and not have to worry week to week. That'll also help you decide after you write 4 or 5 of them, okay, maybe this first one I wrote isn't so good. It was just a stepping stone to get me to the others, but just starting right away. Once done, actually starting to get it out there. So whether you're creating your own personal blog or you want to just do it on Medium, get it out, put it on there, and just start getting consistent basis. Put it on the calendar. Especially if you're getting other people at the company involved, just putting a rotating schedule saying, hey, okay, there's 2 of us who are on the team. We'll just do every other week. Put that in the calendar. Okay, it's my week. Just know that. So you just start getting out. Because there's so much you can learn just by doing. But that initial step is so important.
Yeah. On that note, do you guys do any analytics on your blog posts?
That's something we're getting better about now. We do have Medium provides some built-in analytics, and on our separate site, we can see the number of views individual posts have gotten. But over time, that is a goal of ours, is to really nail down, not only how many views did this get, but how many people read it, how many people shared it, etc.
So, your advice on people who are just starting out, but what about for someone in our situation, like Humanlytics? We have published quite a few blog posts. We have more than 30 followers, but we're not getting your level of traction. We have about 200 views per week. What would you recommend for someone in our situation?
I think that there are 2 strategies that you can pursue in parallel. So one of them is, I mentioned SEO and searching for keywords. Something that we started to date, something that we have done is write posts and then optimize for SEO, but I think there's a lot of value in going the other way around. So first, going out and figuring out what are the keywords people are searching for that might not have that have a good amount of views, not a lot of people writing about them, not a lot of competition, and then writing something around that topic. That's something we're only just starting to do. So, but I do think that can pay off a lot in the long run, especially if you hit upon one of those blockbuster keywords where there's not a lot of stuff written about it, lots of people are searching it. That could really boost you. That's one strategy. I think another one is partnerships, or not necessarily partnerships, but just cross-posting. So finding sites that share content like the stuff you're writing and submitting to them. So we have a lot of people submit to us now that we've kind of built up our own personal following. But being on the other side of that, reaching out and saying, hey, I really like your content. I found your site. We write stuff similar to that. If you think this would be valuable to share with your audience, we'd really appreciate it. Let us know if there's any formatting changes or things like that we should know. But again, we want to share because you can leverage the followings of other organizations to get eyes on. And it might be that it turns into a more ongoing relationship. They say, and this has happened to us on the other side where we go, hey, we really like your stuff. You have really good content. As you write new things, just pass them our way. If we think it's a good fit, we'll share it. Because ultimately, all these sites like us, we want to get more views, and that enables us to bring on more writers or share more content. But we want to share stuff. So if being on the other side of that, do reach out. So if they have a contribute page, do that. Otherwise, they might just have like a contact @ or hello @ or whatever that might be.
All right. So as we approach the end of our interview, just wanted to ask you, Calum, what's next for IoT for All?
So our next step is to really ramp up our production. So we're doing about 1 post per day right now. But to ramp up, we're going to be doing 2 strategies. One, getting more contributing writers. So more people who are just sharing things with us on an ongoing basis. And the second is starting to aggregate content. So our goal is to be the go-to place for everything related to IoT, whatever that might be, which is really huge. So to do that, we can't write everything. Producing original content is great, but we also want to be just the destination. So even if we didn't write it, similar to how if you go on Bleacher Report, you can click through to articles written by ESPN or other sites, having that on our platform. So people just know, okay, I'll go there. This article is interesting to me. Maybe we didn't write it. It's just a link to another site, but it was all there in the first place. And then also expanding into podcast and video, because I think those are the future.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing all your advice. So I guess just to recap some of the things you said, just start out with something, make sure you're adding value to your target audience, and introduce visuals, and make sure you're also taking into account SEO. All right, thanks so much, Calum, for sharing your advice. I know it was really helpful for us at Humanlytics as a company that's just finding its way for content strategy, but also extremely helpful for people who are just starting out. So really appreciate your time and insights. We hope to have you back, and thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'll just say for everyone watching, if you are interested in tech and AI and VR or IoT, please feel free to check out our blog. So it's iot-for-all.com. Also, if you have any questions about the site specifically, about your own content strategy, things like that, happy to help. So you can just email me at calum@iotforall.com. Don't forget the dashes in there. But yeah, thanks for having me, Pat.
Thanks so much, Calum. Take care.
Yep.